transmitted from their, oh, so these people speak like this. That's what he's talking. I knew he wasn't speaking like this. It's these people who speak like this, who in fact take it from this point, and unfortunately, which a lot of people don't realize, it almost always goes back to Scripture. But one has to understand that the Scripture was written in a Greco-Roman world and reflected the outlook and feelings of a Greco-Roman world towards the Middle East. And a Greco-Roman religious mindset, particularly in the wake of Jewish uprising against Rome, that I've tried to explain to you. So that's a very difficult perception to grasp, and I don't think it's till the 21st century that people are really beginning to get a handle on it. You know, this is taking 20 centuries to begin to get a handle on it. And of course, that's why I work on the Dead Sea Scrolls, because the Dead Sea Scrolls have given us a handle on it. You say, how have the Dead Sea Scrolls given us a handle on it? Because the Dead Sea Scrolls have given us a peek at literature that did not go through the editorial processes of the Roman Empire. And therefore we can see what Messianism was in Palestine before it went through a Greco-Roman editorial process. You say, well, Jesus is historical, isn't he? Well, is Asclepius historical? A lot of people, I asked a friend of mine the other day, he said, I'm tired of writing about Jesus, I'm not going to write about him anymore. This guy, Michael Bajan, the one who wrote the Jesus Papers and got clobbered for that, and rightly so, because it's a crummy book. So I want to write about it, and of course he lost a lot of money in that Holy Blood, Holy Grail lawsuit in England, where he tried to show that the Da Vinci Code had ripped him off, which it had, but in any case. He emailed me the other day, I'm fed up. He said, I'm not going to write about Jesus anymore, I'm fed up with writing about Jesus. And I said, well, you want to go write about Asclepius? And he said, he didn't want to comment about that. But, you know, Asclepius was a Greek god of healing, who if you touched him, you were healed. That's how Jesus is portrayed in Scripture. People touch him, and then the flow of blood stopped. See, is that historical? Well, we think it is because we're believers, or the people who are believers think it is. I don't want you people to hate me for saying it, but, you know, I don't think it's any more historical than the Asclepius situation. This is the way God-men were portrayed in Greco-Roman literature. So you have to separate literature from history. And I think what the mistake people make is they don't see the Gospels as literature. They see the Gospels as history. And then you see, if you take literature seriously as history, in other words, if you believe the Greek gods existed, if you think Asclepius really did these things, you know, if you think Dionysus was what he was and so on, or Isis, or any of these other man gods that you have at that time, then of course I think you're missing the inspirational part of it and asking more of the literature than it can provide. Which is why I put in the introduction of my James book something on this subject. I said, if any of you have read the introduction of that book, you might recall it. I said that I cited the example of Plato. Plato wanted to bar the poets from the Republic. You know why Plato and the Republic was his ideal state run by the philosopher kings? Why did Plato want to bar the poets from the Republic? I speak broadly of poets, epic poets, and things like that. Because for him, the poets wrote the myths by which the ordinary people lived. And for him, that was a world of almost total darkness. That's the cave for him. That they're living in a cave with things, shadows. How many are familiar with Plato's cave allegory? Yeah, they're living chained in a cave, and that's how ordinary people live for him. They never go out into the light of the sun, get enlightenment, because they're chained there. I think of it as people sitting in a movie theater. And a lot of people, by the way, get their whole reality from the screen. My kids tell me something they saw on the screen as if it's history, you know. And I say, no, I don't think so. You know, like we're going to hear about the Battle of Iwo Jima pretty soon through Clint Eastwood's eyes, and that's going to be a real joke, you know, and so on and so forth. We're going to hear about the Inca situation from Mel Gibson's eyes, and that's going to be another farce, and so on and so forth. The good thing is that it stimulates people to think about these things, so people don't take that as the literal truth, you know, and they go and look at what the truth is. So that's why Plato wanted to bar the poets from the Republic, and you know, because they created the myth by which the average person lived. And for Plato, whether you're a believer or not, that's nothing to do with me, or it's your situation. You have to decide for yourself about these things. For Plato, that was a world of almost total darkness. You know, the Pope quoted the other day what a Byzantine emperor said about Islam in the 13th century or something like that. He was very smart, because he could say, I didn't say that, I was just quoting a Byzantine emperor that said it. You know, I'm just quoting Plato. I'm not saying that people live in a world of almost total darkness. You see the parallel? Yeah. Okay, let's go on. So I knew that he was talking about, all right, so this piece really needs to be studied a little more carefully than I can do it here. Next page, the hard, at the bottom of that page, the hard, I don't think we can do this whole thing. The hard and oppressive condition under which Jews live almost everywhere would explain, although not justified, even worse corruption than they actually can be accused of. Okay, he goes on the same thing. Next page, everything the Jews are blamed for is caused by the political conditions in which they now live. And again, someone should have shown this essay to Hitler a century and a half later. The idea that they were dirty, squalid people and so on and so forth. And if you've seen Nazi propaganda movies like Rats, they portray them and stuff like that. Just perfectly horrible stuff. If you're looking at someone, I don't feel like I'm a rat walking around, you know, feeding off garbage or something like that. It's so absurd. It's just not even, you know, it's just not even, it's pathetic. It brings to mind an awful thing. I was going to bring it to class. I should have, maybe. It weighs on me. They were talking about what happened in this one village, this new book that's been written about the guy goes to look for 6 of 6 million of his ancestors, or 6 in a family, wants to find out what happened to them from Central Europe, and he goes to the village and he gets memories, and they tell him about what happened in this village, and this is in, I don't know, somewhere in Bohemia, or I don't know where it is, somewhere in Central Europe. And this woman on one of these